Welcome everyone to the first video in the Learning Python series. I'm glad that you chose Python as your first language to learn, that is, if you haven't learned a new language yet. Python is easily readable and relatively simple as a language to pick up. And in this video, we'll be starting just by downloading the language itself and the IDE PyCharm. Now, an IDE stands for an Integrated Development Environment. This is the application that we will be programming on. It has many features that support development, such as syntax highlighting, debuggers, and code completion, which saves a good chunk of time the more you are programming. PyCharm is specifically dedicated to Python and also has other language, but it's mainly Python. You can feel free to use any other IDE, such as Visual Studio for following along, but there will also be an extra section at the end of this video where I will specifically tell you some changes you can make to PyCharm. These are not necessary, they're completely optional, but they just improve the quality of life. To begin, let's just open up our browser. For me, it's Google, and we're just going to type in Python. When you see the python.org link, click on it and head over to download, so you just click on the button. And then it should say to download the latest version for your OS, mine being Windows. You click install, you click download Python 3.12.2, and then I'm showing double click, and you want to install now and just wait for it to install. Okay, Python 3.12.2 is now installed onto my computer, and we will be starting to download PyCharm. So, search for PyCharm in your browser and click on the link that says jetbrains.com. You should see PyCharm, the Python IDE for data science and web development. And you're just going to click download, and now it says PyCharm Professional. Do not install it. As for PyCharm Professional, you need to purchase the license, and it's not free essentially. Just scroll down and you'll find the community edition. So you should click download. Anyways, whilst this is downloading, I'm going to explain the differences between Python Community Edition and Professional Edition. Now, as the name suggests, Professional is for mainly businesses and actual large companies who want to use PyCharm. However, if you're just a normal programmer, I don't think I've ever seen a feature, or I've needed to use a feature, that is locked behind a paywall that, I just can't use it. So there's literally no difference between the two. You can do as much as you want. Now it's showing double click, and back to download, I guess I should say. And then next, and now you want to click next, install, and now I'm just going to wait for it to install. And that will be it for the first part, which is installing the two different programs. And now the second part will be us setting up PyCharm for programming use and different settings. So yeah, I'll skip to when this is finished, and I'll see you in the second part. Okay guys, so I'm back now, and I've restarted my computer. So now we're going to open PyCharm and get everything set up. So I'm just going to type in PyCharm and open up the IDE, so it should be loading. Now it says import settings from Visual Studio Code. If you have other IDEs, it will ask you if you want to import settings. I just click skip import. So now we're on to the main menu. First, what we're going to want to do is just close off this. We don't need it because I'll explain it to you. And you're just going to select new project, and you can name the project whatever you want. So just going to name it Python Project Cool, I guess. And you want to make sure that the interpreter is the project env. This means it's a virtual environment and doesn't use actual Python. So if it gets corrupt, nothing will be lost. And finally, you want to select the version you have installed. Now it should say Python 3.12, and it does. So I click on it, and then you want to press create. It says creating a virtual environment. Just let the application do its thing. Now wait for this blue bar to finish, because it's just setting everything up and adding everything it needs. So just let it finish, and then we can start going towards the tool. I'm just going to quickly just click automatically and boom. So let me give you a guide of the PyCharm IDE. Don't worry, you'll eventually become familiar with all these buttons. Let's start with the notifications. If anything comes up, for example, an update or an installation, it will be listed here, so you can just check, you can clear all, the usual. And if you go just above it, we'll see the run options here. I'll create 2 Python files to show you how the run options work. And now we have 2 Python files, very simple programs. One is just a function to add 2 numbers. Now the other one just loops through a list of ingredients. It's just very simple. Editing magic, boom, just like that. Anyways, time to tell you how the run buttons work. So it says current file here. So this is the run button. So if you just want to run your code, and it will just run your code, very simple. This is what it should print. But it says current file. So what this does is this prints the current file. This runs the current file you're working on. So if I'm working on this file and I click run, it will give me that output. However, if I'm running this file, it will give me 15 because 10 plus 5 is 15. Don't worry, if you don't understand this, you'll learn it eventually. At one point, it'll just be really easy for you guys, so don't worry. So you can choose to have a certain file run. So if you have multiple files and stuff, I think there'll just be a button here somewhere as a so you can choose this file. I use it sometimes, but not too much because I just go to the actual file. Next we have the debugger. So if I add a breakpoint here, just allow this. If I add a breakpoint here, then it will just stop every time it repeats the loop. So once again, if you don't understand how the debugger works, do not worry guys, this is just for example purposes. So that's the debugger. It's good for debugging code. It really helps you to understand what errors, like where did they occur and how do they occur. And it also helps you understand how you want your code to work and what happens. If you move to the right, we have an option to code with me. If you have a friend or someone who also likes to code with, then you can click this button and invite, and there'll be a link, and it will just invite your friend and you code together in real time. I think it's really cool. Haven't used it, but if you want to, by all means. Now, this magnifying glass is a search function, which, like, if your project is massive, it allows you to search files. So if I click on it, and as you can see, it says my file here, but I can search for all the files in my project. By the way, if you haven't noticed, when I run my code, this pane has popped up. Before it wasn't there, so it was just like this, but when you press run, it pops up, and so does the button. This is the run pane. This is where any of your prints and errors will show up. So when I'm coding, I generally always have a print statement somewhere, just so I know what the program is like calculating and what the expected answer should be and what it has given me. So I always tend to keep it open. If you work with a very long file and you need to see everything, keep it closed, but for the most part, we'll always have it open. If you move all the way across the left, right next to the logo, there's a hamburger icon. You click on it, and it shows you all the main settings. So I generally use these quite a lot. This is probably like the section that I use quite a lot. So new project, the new, open, like close, like all of these, the settings. These are quite like quick access and like really helpful. There's also the edit view and all of the normal things you'd find. If you want to know more about these, just do a bit of research about it yourself. I don't want there's too many to explain, and eventually when you need it, you'll need it. If you don't need it, you don't really need to know it. As simple as that. But for the most part, these settings should be self-explanatory. Like, for example, find helps you find occurrences in your code and stuff like that. So for the final part, all we're going to do is going to open our settings. Here, Control-Alt-S if you're on Windows. And you're going to go over here to your appearance. Obviously, that's where it starts, and you can choose whichever theme you want. However, I'd recommend changing it to dark because I do not want to be responsible for any causes of blindness. You can also change different fonts here if your company requires you, or if you work at a company and your company requires you to have like certain limits on how many characters you can have per line or something. You can have indent. I think for Google it's like 80 or 120. I forgot. It's somewhere around those two. And if you go to right down, you can go to new UI. Now this is relatively new as it states, and in my opinion, it's really sleek and clean. But that's the main problem. When coding, I and most people want to be efficient, like with our time. So having all the options hidden by extra buttons is just really gonna slow me down. So I prefer to use the old UI, and I will use it for the most part of the series. I'll quickly show you the old UI, but it's really similar to this one. The buttons are rearranged a bit, but you'll figure it out eventually. Don't worry, it's still the same. This is like, I don't know, it's like easy. If I want to find a button, it's just right here. I don't have to hover over it, I could just click on it and then the whole thing shows up. Far easier, the buttons are just in a better place. It's all just makes more sense for me, and I'm used to this because I was programming with this UI for a long time. And also, the syntax, like highlighting, so like the colors for different keywords, it just looks a lot better and it's more colorful here, which is always visually appealing. So sorry if this video was relatively long. There are some options I needed to explain, like the differences between the UI that I think can really like change your perception of programming to this like soulless world, to a very nice and problem-solving universe. If you enjoyed this video and you got everything working correctly, my daily checklist for you would be to have a good day, program, and be happy. Bye guys.